I like Michelle Malkin, she never makes my red state blue. And if my wife would let me, hey, I'd marry Michelle too.
Michelle, did you know that song existed out there?
Yes.
You did? You've heard that before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Have you worn the album out yet, or as your husband?
Yeah.
Michelle Malkin is joining me from, where are you right now? Are you in Colorado?
I am.
You are in Colorado, okay. But soon you're going to be up in Wyoming. There's a special event with Wyoming Liberty Group that is all about Common Core, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, my question for you is, you are a mom. And so what I've been seeing as I follow your columns here is you are taking the whole Common Core issue very near and dear to your heart and very personal. Could you talk about that?
Sure. And I have been for a long time. Not only am I the mother of a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, but I am also the daughter of a public school teacher who had to deal with a lot of the brainwashing, the propaganda, the waste, the fraud, the abuse, the union bullying that happens to public school teachers in South Jersey, where I grew up. So my eyes were opened very early on to a lot of the fed ed excesses that I've been reporting on as a journalist, as a columnist over the past 20 years. When Common Core came down the pike several years ago, it was clear to me that this was just the latest iteration, the latest transmogrification of the vision of these anointed educrats. And I'd seen it in my days when I was working in Los Angeles, when many of these ideologues were co-opting the language of academic rigor and excellence. So the idea that, of course, there should be a common core, and of course kids all across the country should have the same basic foundation in math and English and history, it is clear that the strategy is to use that language to make it almost impossible to dissent and to criticize what actually is really going on. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I've fought many of the same battles that grassroots parents and activists have across the country as they've seen the nonsensical homework come back in their kids' backpacks. And what you realize, Glenn, is that what's going on here in large part is a very intentional and deliberate means of driving wedges between parents and their own children, between autonomous local school districts and school boards and the federal government, and there's a huge aspect of culture of corruption involved as well.
Okay. Well, and on that note,
lots to go on here.
Oh yeah. I could just step away and go get a cup of coffee and come back, and you'll be doing just fine on this issue. My special guest, Michelle Malkin, on the phone with us right now. Are you coming out with another book on this soon? I'm just curious, because I was also taking a look at what you've written recently.
Yeah, I do have another book coming out probably in the summer, next summer. It's actually a history book, and it does not deal specifically with, many of the ideological battles that we're fighting on this front, but in my own way, it's my way of fighting back against the emptiness and the anti-American and anti-capitalist bent that has seeped into the public school system.
I often wonder, I will go ballistic and my head will explode every time I hear another case of zero tolerance, which to me really means zero thinking, or every time a kid at school expresses an opinion or some kind of innovation. Or this was not a problem for me back when I was in school. I'm very much of a divergent, think outside the box kind of guy. And my teachers encouraged that. But the more I look into Common Core, the more I find that they're not really interested in kids that think outside the box, or for that matter, teaching us to be individuals. I don't find that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important bottom line. What a lot of these big government and big business types are doing in their alliance for Common Core and rackets like it is to create a generation of cogs in the machine. And, as I mentioned, this is just the latest version of it, but the sort of schemes that preceded it, whether it was outcome-based education, again, which sounds great, who could be against good outcomes, right? Or school to work, goals 2000, What you have are schemes that are meant to groom very compliant children and students who conform to the same standards. And I think that, one of the things that resonates with parents, whether they're left, right, or center, independent, Republican, or Democrat, is no kid is common, okay?
Yeah.
Every kid has a different set of skills and talents and difficulties and challenges, and that's what parents and teachers and school boards are supposed to do. And, what Common Core has done in so many states that took the federal bribery, the money from Race to the Top, to impose standards that they didn't even have a chance to see before they took the money, they were that desperate, is that in many cases, those mediocre standards, those standards that are used to proselytize left-wing ideology and progressivism, of course, have lowered the academic rigor and academic excellence that had already been put in place and were truly formed at the grassroots level.
So let's talk a little bit about how some of the states got into Common Core, because on the one hand, I find some Republicans, notice, Michelle, I didn't say conservative, I find some Republicans in high positions that are pushing Common Core, and then we have people like Bobby Jindal. So what's the disconnect in the Republican Party where some are for and some are against it?
Well, there's a number of different factors. One is just pure partisan and electoral ambition, and that, I think, in large part explains the likes of Jeb Bush and Mike Huckabee, who have been shilling for Common Core from day one, who ought to know better, who preach things like support for local control and school choice, and then turn around and pocket the big business donations of the likes of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, pander to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations of the world, and consort with corporate CEOs who, again, should know better because they're looking at 2016 and they know that this is the way to go if they want to fill those coffers. Then you have people who I think were legitimately duped and who, for whatever reason, have seen the light. And I think this is the category that Bobby Jindal falls under because, of course, many parents and activists who've been paying attention know that he was all in for Common Core until the last 6 to 8 months. And whether he has good political strategists who are just more responsive than other Republican leaders, I don't know. But as long as he has made the conversion, stays there, and parents and educators and activists in Louisiana keep holding his feet to the fire, great. I'm all for that. But then you've got your governor in Wyoming and other governors like Jan Brewer in Arizona and Mike Pence in Indiana who have essentially doubled down on their clueless support for Common Core, even though they keep getting more and more evidence and reports from the field, reports from the ground and school districts that this thing is an absolute abomination. I can't explain that.
Well, it seems to me that when you dangle money in front of them, which, by the way, I really get a kick out of that because between Medicaid expansion and Common Core, the federal government's promising money that they don't have and isn't going to arrive. So, but they seem to be tempted by the money. And also you take a look at people like Governor Meade. I wonder if he has higher aspirations than the state of Wyoming, so he better be part of the club if he wants to advance. Now, that's just my own personal theory.
Yep, and that's the first factor that I mentioned right off the bat. And so it seems as though Governor Meade falls in the Bush-Huckabee expedient category,
right.
Unfortunately, however, one of the reasons I'm coming there next week is I think that you have a lot to celebrate. It's very encouraging to me that you have such a strong grassroots parental and activist component against Common Core. And, all politics is local. If your governor doesn't see the light now, he will at some point.
Well,
there
you go.
Prepared.
Now, I've had the privilege. You're going to meet Amy Edmonds there if you haven't met her already. She'll be speaking
I have
with you.
not yet. I can't wait to meet her.
She's great. And, by the way, I love Amy to death, so don't misunderstand. Michelle, you're a tiny little thing. I'm 6'1". Amy's taller than me.
Oh, boy.
Just so you know. But she is...
I'll be wearing my 4-inch heels.
Oh, yeah, that's the way to go. But she is just a great person. I've had a chance to speak with her at some Common Core events in Wyoming, and it packs the house. which is why it throws me that the governor is still against it. But let's take a look at it across the country, because there's something you mentioned right out of the gate as soon as we started talking about this, and that has to do with the bullying. Because once again, if you're opposed to this federal program, people are coming to get you.
Oh, yeah, it's vicious. And, that old leftist saw about by any means necessary, well, it's definitely been adopted by the Common Core overlords and the Common Core establishment, and they will stop at nothing. There's no ad hominem attack that's too low for these people. When even Jeb Bush is lowering himself to attacking parents, and Arne Duncan, the education secretary under Obama, is demonizing, quote unquote, suburban white moms, unquote.
Yeah.
Not only playing the gender card here, but the race card as well. Mm-hmm. It tells you that this is a protection racket, and it is a massive boondoggle, because we talked about the political donation aspect of this, but look at what's at stake for all of these textbook companies, the education technology companies, literally billions of dollars pouring into aligning to Common Core and making sure that every school district is sprinkled with all of this technology, preloaded with all of these Common Core apps.
All right, let's real quick, before we talk about where the event is and when, and people can still sign up now if they want to. What do you think the end game is for Common Core? What are they really after, do you think?
Power and control.
Yeah.
Mark Tucker, who was a Clinton educrat from decades and decades ago, who was still ensconced in D.C., and it was in the middle of, even as late as now, all of the Common Core backroom dealings, spelled it out, and I wrote about it in a column that you can find at my website at michellemalkin.com, where he said their goal was no less than to undermine this, and the way that they, of course, looked down their noses at the traditions that were put in place by our founding fathers, and this bourgeois idea that local control of schools should be something that is respected, and that's what their target was, and it always has been. They see our children as their educational guinea pigs and junior lobbyists.
Well, I just had lunch this afternoon. My tab was $12. I tried to figure out the tip using Common Core math, and I had to leave a $3,000 tip. So I just You're going to be there next Thursday, September 25th. Go to whyliberty.org, and that's where you can pick up tickets for this event. And the event starts at 7 o'clock. So anybody who's down there in Cheyenne can see you then on Thursday. It starts at 7 p.m.
Little America.
Little America. That's the place. I was afraid to open my big fat mouth, which is what I do 3 hours a day. Michelle, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to finally get a chance to speak with you.
You bet, bud.